Hey, I'm Brandi McNair. I'm the host of the KOBY Blueprint, Courage, Confidence, and Self-Advocacy Unleashed. So excited today to have a special guest on, and I told you all, for all of our listeners, all of our viewers, that we're going to have a whole bunch of special guests on as we pretty much go through the KOBY curriculum. So our special guest today is Brandi Hall, a former student athlete, movie producer, and a spectacular individual. So Brandi, welcome to the KOBY Blueprint.
Thank you for having me.
Self-advocacy, courage, and confidence unleashed. How you doing today?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good. So Brandi, you and I have a history, right? And I remember you came to us a couple years ago. What was that, 3-4 years ago?
It was like 3.
3 years ago. And you wanted to do a documentary on our story, or Jordan's story. So tell us a little bit about you before we get into that, really who you are, what you do, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, so from the Maryland area, right outside of Baltimore, Anne Arundel County, and really started to fall in love with storytelling and film and things of that nature. When I was around high school, I watched a documentary about broadcasting for the Super Bowl. That seems kind of cool, how they tell the story and the production behind it. Eventually just started to understand about, where I wanted to go career-wise. Played basketball growing up, so I knew in some way, shape, or form I wanted it to be connected to sports. Ended up going to Stevenson University for undergrad, was a film major there, played basketball there, and then decided to go to grad school at Wake Forest University in their documentary filmmaking program, and my master's was in sports media. And while I was there, one of the things that we had to do to graduate is create a thesis film. And again, it's a documentary filmmaking program. And mine was in sports media, so the idea was that it had to do with sports. But one of the things they really honed in on in that program is that sports is the catalyst, it's the overarching connecting factor, but you want your story to be about something deeper than just sports.
Right.
So the way I learned about you guys' story actually was while I was at Stevenson. My freshman year roommate and my teammate at the time went to McDonough with Jordan, and we graduated the same year as well. And I learned about you guys' story through her, social media and things of that nature. And then her locker was also right next to mine, so I remember seeing Jordan's face on the funeral program in her locker. So once I went to grad school and I'm thinking about all these ideas about what story do I want to tell, you guys were one of the first ones that popped in my head. And even though I was still kind of filtering through what might work, the story was always there. Yes, everyone knows what happened to him, but who's telling the story about you guys after the fact?
Sure.
And what you guys are doing, not only in the Baltimore area, but just all up and down the East Coast, going to things on the West Coast and things of that nature. And I just wanted to be part of, telling you guys a story beyond just the incident,
Sure.
but what you guys are doing after the fact and how you guys are helping people.
Right. Brandi, I'm trying to remember, because I think that you've been so much of a part of our lives, literally since the shoot, since you followed us around for almost 2 years, when we were just doing what we were doing. Our goal really from the Jordan McNair Foundation really was just a matter of just trying to do the right thing for the right reason, save lives for the right, educate people, educate coaches, educate parents, trying to get legislation passed and all these different things, it just was a fast moving train, ever since this whole incident happened with Jordan. And, one of the big things, when you came along, it was okay, I remember you shot us an email first, and I'm like, okay, but we have been in the media so much that, different various news outlets and national news outlets and things like that, where we didn't have a documentary, and it was okay, here's a young person that's, motivated, and it was a film project, we didn't know whether this was going to be an ESPN, outside the lines, or 30 for 30, I think we can always use, pain in the purpose, pain in the passion, it can go further and further, and obviously we see that. But, at that, we didn't really know what to expect at that time. I didn't know what your skill set was or anything, but it's okay, let's go ahead and do it. Let's tell our story. Let's create something where we can show it to the world, And I mean, so when you came along, it was really like, it made sense. Like everything you just said, you know, it's like, okay, hey, you know what, let's kind of rock with this in a sense. And like you followed us around for like 2 years, right? Was it 2 years?
Give or take a couple of months, but it was. I remember I was coming back the first time I was able to go with you guys for something was when we were in Annapolis doing the hearing.
We were in the legislative session.
And I was home for spring break, because I'm basically coming back and forth from North Carolina to Maryland, and I was really nervous when I first reached out to you guys because I was like, I don't know what they've done. So outside, again, various news outlets, but I don't know if someone else has reached out to you guys about something like this.
Sure.
But again, wanted to really focus on the fact that I don't want to tell the same story that everyone else is told.
Right.
I want to show all the different things that you guys are doing around the country. So.
Right. Well, and I think that was like ideal because, you know, to me, you caught us like real live footage. Wasn't any B take rolls or B rolls or any of that. Like you got the real live, you know, uncut or the uncut version or genuine footage of what we were doing. And I remember, you know, I'm trying to think what bill was that you followed us down on. That was that the NIL bill?
No, it was that for high schools.
Yeah, that was House Bill 836. So we were focusing on the student athlete safety bill for high schools, where we were. The actual law is House Bill 836 or the Elijah Gorham Act, and basically, you know, unfortunately, young man Elijah passed while we were already in the process, because I've been working on that bill for a couple years, and the NIL bill had took precedence over that bill the year before, the Jordan McNair Safe and Fair Play Act. And then while we were in the legislative session, unfortunately Elijah passed, and it was like, okay, you know, it was almost like it was just, I mean, terrible timing, but, you know, again, this was a high school student athlete that passed. It only made sense to, you know, put his name or, you know, honor him somewhere around that. So I remember when, you know, we were down there, and I think that was such a kind of like a interesting time for us because, you know, Wes Robinson was working with us, you know, and if those that don't know, you know, Wes was the athletic trainer on the field that day. So, you know, we felt the first couple years, we felt a certain way about Wes, and here he is working with us today, you know, really trying to make a legislative or just working with us in whatever capacity, really to make an impact to keep other kids safe or to prevent this stuff from happening again. Brandi, so let me ask you this. So even while you were in the process of recording this, right, or shooting this documentary on us, you know, it's easy because we were just being recorded. Like, what were some of the challenges that you faced? Like, you know, was it emotional for you really dealing with this? Because, you know, you were in our personal space, and myself and Jordan's mom, Tanya's personal space, you know, a lot. So you got a lot of raw emotion out of us, you know, without being coached or whatever, because we just felt comfortable with you. What were some of the challenges that you faced as well?
Definitely very emotional for a multitude of reasons. One, just because, you know, that's a tragic thing that anyone would have to go through, and just being a human being and getting to know you guys and just the amazing people that you guys are.
Right.
That was hard enough. And then also understanding that me and Jordan were the same age, only a couple months apart from each other. Right. So understanding that part of it too, and it's very close to home. I had a friend that was personally affected by the situation, and just balancing that was definitely hard, especially when we're doing these interviews and the human part of you doesn't want to ask something that's you know, going to hurt somebody.
Right.
And having to relive a situation, but at the same time, my intention and the purpose is to help tell you guys a story. So of course, just balancing the sensitivity of that, and then also just in structuring the story. There's so much in so many different directions that you can go when telling a story of this capacity, and so just really understanding what themes that I'm trying to hit on. And my professors at Wake were really good about giving me good feedback. That initial cut was well over an hour.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
And the first cut was down to 22 minutes. Huh?
And I had to chop it down, and because again, you can go so many different directions. You can go, you know, different ways with different characters, and just there's some stuff that I shot that I didn't use. I did shoot an interview with a professor at Wake Forest, just talking about, you know, how heat stroke affects the body and just kind of giving a more medical perspective.
Correct.
But during editing it, really just understanding that that's not really the direction that the story is really needing to take.
Right.
And just really focusing on the emotional impact and the personal, you know, stories and things of that nature. So just balancing structure in the story is hard
I
too.
think you captured it. You know, one of the things I'm sure as a movie maker or a producer or what would the correct term be? A filmologist, a filmmaker. You know, it's almost the equivalent of being an author. You know, like, you know, even though we got, you know, I wrote Can My Child Play, but I wrote a second book. You know, and it's always, you always want to have more, right? You always want to have almost too much because you can always kind of edit, cut what you don't need. And, you know, when you look at books or projects and things like that, you know, sometimes you kind of got to go in where it's like, okay, am I going to write a 50,000 page book or am I a 50,000 word book, or am I going to write a 100,000 word book, or I'm going to write a 75,000 word book? But nobody just says, hey, I'm just going to get the 50,000 and that's it. You know, you just kind of write and then you trim it down to that right there. Exactly. But even in regards to that, Brandi, you know, you talked about the emotional aspect of it, but, you know, really this particular podcast, in regards to the curriculum, and even, let me say this, you know, and you remember, you know, we had presented this at our fundraiser last year, right? And then we had an ESPN Outside the Line special that came out like a month right after this. So this really didn't get the Pain and Passion really didn't get the steam or the momentum that we wanted it to get, just because a bigger entity it came out with another story as well, from more of a national platform. So, you know, we moving along, and then Pain and Passion made the Ocean City Film Festival, right? So, of course, you know, it was like, you know, we go down there, we meet you down there that Friday night, and then they don't show the movie, right? Like, they had technical difficulties, and it's like, all right, okay. So you saw immediately, like, the light bulb in my mind, like, went off, like, oh, we need to show this in schools then, because, you know, clearly, you know, this made the film festival, you know. So I think it always stuck in my mind, like, you know, we got to show this to the masses. We got to show this to student athletes. We got to show this to, you know, student athletes, because I think between what Ellis said, what Jordan's teammates said, his other teammates said, was just like ideal when it came to Pain and the Passion, you know what I mean, in regards to the documentary and what it is to be a student athlete. You know, all of the unrealistic expectations that not only other people may have of us, but really what we have of ourselves, you know, when it comes to, you know, Ellis said, you know, I think that, or his quote was, you know, Jordan's only fault that day, he was just trying to be a good teammate. You know, so when you look at that type of stuff, for you being a former basketball player or student athlete, like, what were some of the challenges that you had, like, at, you know, what's one thing, I'll start the question off, what's one thing you wish you would have known coming into, or you weren't prepared for coming into the high school? I mean, coming into the collegiate level from high school.
I would say it's one thing, funny enough, it's one thing that people always tell you, but you don't understand until you get into it, that it's a big adjustment for anybody, and you're going from probably a big dog in a smaller pond to a small dog in a big pond. Yeah. And though I was blessed enough to come into a situation where I did get, you know, good amount of playing time, even as a freshman, and I tell my players this now, it's that first year, it's an adjustment, and it's hard for anybody.
Right. And
you have to balance between pushing yourself, but also giving yourself grace.
Sure.
That it's not just you, and that's okay.
Right.
And to just balance that, the ego and knowing yourself and, you know, where your limit is. And of course, playing sports, you're always taught, you know, push yourself, go past your limit. But there's a very thin line. Yep. And obviously you understand that, and that's what you're teaching. You don't want to give yourself excuses.
Sure. Especially
if you're wanting to play at the next level. But you also have to understand that at the end of the day, you're not just an athlete, you're a human being. Yep. But yeah, that transition from I'm one of the best players on my team to my leash is short. Right. Was definitely, even though people tell you it, but you don't understand it until you're in it.
I think that, you know, I tell kids all the time that, you know, if you're 3-star to 4-star, 5-star, Yeah, but when you get to the next level, everybody on the team is 3-star, 4-star, 5-star.
And it's funny because obviously I went to Stevenson University. It's a D3 school.
Sure.
And there's obviously a big difference between Division III level and Division I level, especially Power 5, Big Ten.
Right.
But at the same time, it's still not different.
Yeah.
Because we're at this level, but everybody in this team probably still started or played significant minutes or were top whatever on their team.
Sure.
So it's the same idea. Like, okay, yeah, you started on your high school team. So did everybody else.
Right. So let me ask you. So even with that being said, right? How important is self-confidence? Like at that level. Okay, so. You were good, you look like you probably were nationally ranked, you played one, right?
Yeah.
All right,
you played one. Ranked,
okay.
I wasn't bad.
Right, okay, I'm sure you probably had intentions that, you were going to, D1, LSU or Maryland or something like that. I'm sure, right?
Yeah, of course, that was the goal. Aspirations, yeah.
Yeah. You think, everybody thinks big,
absolutely.
How realistic for you, because, most of the time, like when you look at someone like yourself, really like, you're probably what, 5'5"? 5'5", right. Now put 3 more inches on you, you would have been D1, right? Realistic, let's just call it what it is. What type of transition, or how did you feel when it's like, okay, how many offers did you have? Let's go there.
So it's crazy because I didn't have any offers coming out of high school.
Really?
None.
Wow. So you walked on here?
So Division III, they don't give athletic scholarships.
Okay.
So I had a lot of Division III attention. I don't call it offers just because they're not giving me athletic money.
Sure.
I had good grades, so I got good packages.
Sure.
Which is super important, especially when at one point you're going to realize I'm not going D1.
Exactly. Right.
I was lucky enough that my dad was very realistic with me and didn't, I'm not in my senior year of high school, and my dad's like, yeah, ignore the D3, you're going D1, like.
Right.
But yeah, I didn't have any offers, but I had 2 teammates that went Division I, so it was around my junior year where I was like, I'm going into my last AAU season, I don't have any offers. If they do come, if something comes along, like that's awesome, but I was just more focused on I wanted to play basketball at the next level, and despite whether it's D1, D2, D3,
I'm playing.
It's only like 5% of high school athletes that get to do this after high school, and if I'm blessed enough to have people that want me to play for them.
Right.
So
take advantage of it.
Right. The good thing is that I didn't harp on that for very long. I get to college and I still think there's some people that might have went D1 that I'm like, I think I was better than coming out of high school, but I didn't sit on it, and I ended up in the place I was supposed to be.
Right.
And I made the relationships that I was supposed to, and I had the impact that I was supposed to, and other than COVID, I was very satisfied with the college career that I had. So.
Nice.
And going back to the confidence thing, I always tell players, whether it's mine, whether it's kids I help train, or just any athlete that I meet, I always say confidence comes from preparation.
Yep.
That's part one. That's half of the battle.
Confidence comes from preparation.
Yeah.
Got it. Break that down for me.
So,
or for us.
My dad always used to tell me, if you don't put any money in the bank, you can't withdraw.
Right.
If I'm not putting in more, if I want to do something that someone else isn't doing, I can't do what everybody else is doing.
Right.
So if I want to do what 5% of high school athletes aren't doing, I can't do what the 95% are doing.
Totally agree.
And so as far as confidence comes from preparation, I'm working out. I'm doing the extra things. I'm going to the gym multiple times a week. I started lifting when I was about a junior in high school. And I'm working on shots and spots that I'm doing over and over and over again. Right. So when it comes time to showcase those things, it becomes second nature.
Sure.
And I'm confident in taking the shot because I've done it thousands of times in the gym.
Right.
And I only say that's half the battle because it's also a mental thing.
Yep.
That, you can't be confident if you haven't done it. If I haven't taken the shot, I'm not going to be confident taking it.
Of course.
But the other part is I have to be true to the fact that I did that. I put in the work, so I deserve to take the shot.
That's where the self-confidence comes in there.
Right. It's twofold.
Sure. So really what you were doing was and that's one of our episodes, Mastering the Mundane. You created mundane habits around, people talk about Kobe, right? Not Kobe, keep on believing, but Kobe Bryant. And, I was just reading something today where they were saying how Michael Jordan said something kind of, slick to Kobe about, you can wear my shoes or something, but you'll never match up to me or whatever. And they said, like, Kobe didn't talk to the team for 2 weeks. He didn't say anything to his teammates for 2 weeks. That's when Michael Jordan was with the Wizards, but he put up 55 the next time they played. You know what I mean? So again, that confidence, and everybody always talked about Kobe had a strong work ethic. You know what I mean? He mastered mundane. He had mundane habits, right? He mastered mundane habits, whether it was the same shot, whether it was every time he came in the gym, it's like, okay, I hate to do legs. But again, I try to get legs out the way first just because I hate to do them. So again, when you master these mundane, and they kind of go from everything from, working out in the gym, studying, just taking care of yourself mentally, getting a good night's rest and all that type of stuff. It's just so many things, but in reality, mastering mundane habits is what gets you to the next level. Like you want this to be second nature without even thinking about it. You don't need anybody to say, you just said it, like your dad told you, hey, you can't withdraw any money out the bank if you ain't putting none in. So of course that's the best analogy when it comes to, a hard work ethic. But you mentioned like a very thin line between, what does it mean when you say, it's a thin line between pushing too hard versus, just kind of being realistic?
Yeah, so I say that, and I think especially being around you guys has helped really realize these things. But, as a student athlete growing up, everyone's always telling you, push through the wall. My parents are military. My dad was like a PT instructor in the military. So it's pushing yourself, push through the wall, you know what I mean? And I do believe that as you grow up, you have to understand that you can't just quit when it gets a little hard. But at the same time, athletes understanding their bodies and when something doesn't feel right is what I mean by that. Of course, if you're doing conditioning for basketball, for example, of course you need to be in shape, and of course to get into shape, you're gonna have to do stuff that's hard. You're gonna be tired. You're gonna be breathing hard. You're gonna be doing these things. But if one of my players comes up and is like, I feel kind of dizzy. Okay, you need to sit down. And I'm blunt with that. I was like, I don't need you passing out. But I say this because in reality, I say it as bluntly as I can. I don't want you to pass out. Are you eating? You need to make sure that you're putting something in your body. So that's what I mean. Of course, I want to push you, or as an athlete, you want to push yourself because you want to be in good shape. You want to be able to push yourself mentally, because in games, you're going to be tired. Can you push past the fatigue? But at the same time, being honest with yourself, with your teammates, with your coaches about something doesn't feel right, and not hiding it when something doesn't feel right. If I'm struggling to breathe, don't try to hide from somebody because you don't want them to notice that you can't breathe. Stuff like that. So that's what I mean by it's a really thin line. And I think, one, athletes understanding themselves, what that is, but also as a coach, you have to create an environment that they feel comfortable enough to tell you when something doesn't feel right. I tell my players all the time, like, if something's not right, you need to tell me. Because I care about you more as a person than as a basketball player.
Thank you. Repeat that. Could you please?
I care about you more as a person than a basketball player. If you can't breathe, I'm going to get really mad if and obviously I'm not going to blow up on them, but it's like if something's wrong with you and you're trying to hide it from me, I'm going to be more mad that you hid it from me.
Of course.
We had a player a couple of years ago. She has asthma and she was struggling to breathe, and she ran to the locker room, got her inhaler, and we came back with like, why is your inhaler not out here? I'm not mad that you were struggling to get through this drill. I'm mad because
you weren't prepared.
I want you to be safe first. And if we're talking about a heart, your head, and you talk about your heart, your head. Heat. It's a concussion. It's hot outside. It's I can't breathe. I have asthma. Things of that nature. I need you to tell me. Because I need to look out for it, and if something doesn't look right, I'm going to stop you.
Hey, Brandi. So even in regards to that, I tell young people all the time. You ask young people. I go to high schools and I speak and stuff like that, and it's like, hey, what type of cars does everybody like? Everybody likes muscle cars. foreign exotic cars and stuff like that. And the interesting thing, young people want premium results, right? But you don't want to put premium gas or do the things where it comes to premium input, but you want premium output or you want premium results. So premium results look like, hey, premium results look like, oh, I can go out and put up a triple double, or I can put up 30 every night, or I can put up these consistent numbers, or I can run this, this 4-4 consistently, or I can do this, or all these different things from a premium perspective. But in reality, you can't do that if you put in 87. You got 87 habits, for sure.
You're putting regular in
you put regular
Audi.
Yeah, right.
Regular gas.
You're gonna mess the engine up, right?
Yeah.
Eventually, right? You're gonna blow the engine, because again, or the engine is gonna run extremely sluggish because you're not doing these things. You talked as a coach. What does partnership look like realistically? Because this is what we teach with KOBY. Like self-advocacy is like one of our topics, right? What does that look like from a coach's perspective? Like, I think young people think that if I can't do it, I'm letting coach down. But like you just said, I care about you more as a person and the individual first before I'm more concerned about what you can do, on the field or on the court.
Yeah. So like you said, it's a partnership, and in our program we split up our players between coaches, and basically we have a mentorship thing.
Sure.
I have 6 players right now that are my mentees.
Right.
After the end of the second week of school, we have our first mentor meeting, and typically we'll have them consistently throughout the year.
Sure.
And one thing I tell them all the time is like, I need you to be honest with me.
Yeah.
Just like I'm going to be honest with you.
Right.
Again, I want you to be the best student, person, and basketball player that you can be, and that's my job, is to help you be that.
Right.
But in order for me to help you, you got to be honest with me.
Yeah.
So that's physically, that's mentally, and that's emotionally, that's on the court. But again, that goes back to, you got to create an environment that they feel comfortable enough to tell you that.
Yep.
You can tell the player all you want,
Right.
but if all I'm asking about is basketball stuff,
Yeah,
they
of
probably
course.
think, well, they probably don't
Right.
care what I got going on outside of that. And
Of course.
at the end of the day, I tell them all the time, basketball, the ball's going to stop bouncing at one point. You're not going to be a basketball player anymore, and
Right.
you have to be one, secure in yourself
Right.
as a person,
Right.
and create habits that will, carry you after basketball stops.
Or sports stop in general.
Sports,
right,
yeah,
exactly.
obviously basketball.
Because it's going to end one day.
It's going to end one day.
Yeah.
Whether it's now or later.
Right.
And we're at the D3 level, so it's probably going to be in the next couple years.
Of course.
But it's as a coach, I want nothing more but to create an environment that my players feel comfortable enough to tell me when something's going on.
Got it.
And again, that's in all facets.
Yep.
Obviously, there's going to be some stuff they're not going to tell you.
Sure.
Because,
of course.
I'm a college athlete and you're a coach.
Yeah.
But it's like I don't want to pry, especially physically. Like you're talking about your health and mentally. I don't want to have to pry that out of you.
Right.
Because I want to try to help you earlier than later.
Right.
Right.
So Brandi, you wore the uniform. You were, you're a movie producer, a filmmaker. Who are you outside of when you don't have the uniform on?
I like to. It's weird because I'll say I'm an introvert.
Right.
But that I'm an introvert to people I don't know.
Okay.
So if I go somewhere like in public, I'm probably not talking to a lot of people that I don't know. That's just me.
Right.
Pretty quiet. But I love to be around people that I care about.
Got it.
So that's my friends. I have a friend group from college that we've been friends since we were freshmen. Sure. Currently trying to plan our Friendsgiving.
Sure.
I love being around my players. I love being around our coaching staff.
Right.
So people that I care about deeply, I like to spend time with them. So most of my time is spent at work or with basketball.
Right.
Or at home. I live with my mother and friends that I care about. So I like to watch movies and I like to hang out with people and I like to cook. I like to cook a lot.
Good stuff. So Brandi, thank you for coming on. This is Marty McNair, the host of the KOBY Blueprint. Courage, Confidence, and Self-Advocacy Unleashed. Hold on, before we go, Brandi, where can everybody find you at? Can they look at any of your documentaries? You can go to our YouTube page and our YouTube channel to see the Pain and the Passion documentary. I suggest everybody sees it. Brandi, you do a lot of stuff on Vimeo.
Yeah, well, I have a website, brandihall.com. Okay. It has all my work. So just between the documentary and just other things that I've done. So.
Got it. So was the documentary your best piece so far?
Yeah, I think it pushed me just as a storyteller for sure, and then I always say in whatever I do, I like to tell a story.
Yeah.
And just handling sensitive things, but just also just telling and humanizing different stories. And like you said, being able to tell stories that people might know about, but you want to give context to them, and you want to be able to tell them in a way that people can still connect to it, other than just, like you said, the shock value.
Sure.
I wanted to be able to tell you guys a story past just the tragedy, because you guys, that's only one part of the story.
Sure.
And I think being able to tell Jordan's story is more than just what happened to him.
Right.
And what you guys' foundation is doing is super important. So, yeah.
Yep. Thank you. Again, I'm Marty McNair. I'm the host of the KOBY Blueprint, Courage, Confidence, and Self-Advocacy Unleashed. See you next time. Take care.